homie.
What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, and tonight I have a special guest for you all the way from Iceland, Sigfus Fosdal. How are you, Sigfus?
I'm pretty good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thanks for jumping on so late your time. I really appreciate that.
It's fine. It's not that late. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I like to start off my interviews is for anyone who doesn't know you, and perhaps this is the most important part of the whole interview, brag about your accomplishments.
Yeah, that's not my strong suit, but I'll try, man. My name is Sigfus, and I'm from Iceland. I live up north in a town called Akureyri. I've been playing with weights since like 14 years old. I spent almost 20 years in powerlifting and decided to go for strongman back in 2015. I wanted to do something different, you know. I had been doing the powerlifting for a long time, and somehow when I was younger, I always wanted to go into strongman, but I never really made the transition. But I was at the crossroads, and I needed to refine my joy, so I said, to hell with it. I'm going to go to strongman, focus on getting into the world's strongest man competition, and if I stop enjoying it, I'll quit right away. Almost 6 years later, and I still haven't lost the appetite. But in powerlifting, I still have the heaviest bench press ever made in Iceland, and I've kept that since 2008. I had the heaviest squat in Icelandic history from 2009 until Hafthor took it away from me, I believe 3 years ago, something like that, 2 or 3. I had the biggest total from 2011 until 2019, and the guy that actually took it away from me was voted Sports Person of the Year in Iceland. So it was a pretty big deal. But I've competed at Worlds. I won the WPF World Championships in powerlifting in 2008 and WPF Bench Press Championships in 2009. So I had a very good powerlifting career before I turned over to the strongman. And in 2019, I competed as the world's strongest man. That's my biggest accomplishment in the strongman. But that it ended pretty abruptly in the first event after 40-something seconds. So I feel like I still have some things left to do right there. I want to get back in there. I've spent some time on injury and coming back, and I've much more to prove than I've proven by now. So, yeah, I think those are the biggest highlights.
Quite a few highlights for sure. I mean, I did notice that you are an elite level powerlifter, and I was going to ask you, which came first, the chicken or the egg, powerlifting or strongman? So you answered that one. What was it about strongman that drew your attention that was different from powerlifting? I have an idea, but I want to get your opinion.
Because of my success in powerlifting, it was always difficult to decide to leave it. Then I got a little bit fed up with it, and strongman is a much more viewer friendly. It's much more fun, you know, both to compete and to watch, and that got to me a little bit. The traveling as well. I mean, most of the shows here in Iceland take 2 or 3 days, and we travel around the country, and so there's a lot of fun in that as well, and there's a lot more heat and attention on the strongman. That's a little bit what pushed me to go for it. I mean, like I said, when I was younger, that was always the end game. But at some point, I had completely decided not to do it. I didn't think it was going to be. I wouldn't be that good at it. I was very, very heavy and very slow. I mean, I was taking 3-hour training sessions for squat, bench, and deadlift, you know, so I didn't even train fast. So it took a lot of changes to get good in the strongman, and I still have my throwing is not good enough, for example, and my stamina is still getting better. So it was this fuck it mentality that led me to go for it, to enjoy sport. I wasn't done training. I wasn't done trying to get stronger, but powerlifting was a little bit old news somehow. I didn't want to keep doing it at the time, but I still aim to put up one total before I quit entirely. And I have some big numbers in mind for that, something I should have. I mean, I got the 1125 kilo total back in 2011, and my best numbers add up to 1150.
Wow.
And I had pneumonia when it got at 1125, so I was sick. And I always felt like I could have hit closer to 1200 than I actually did. So I still want to prove that there were some things left in the tank.
Yeah, and for all those listeners in the U.S., that's kilos, everybody. So 1,200 would be 2,640 pounds.
2660.
Yeah.
I'm not 100%. It could be 20. It could be 2040. I'm not 100% sure. I think no. It must be 1100 was. Oh, you're probably right. Yeah.
Either way, it's a gigantic number. Either way,
it's a pretty decent number. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on strongman versus powerlifting with the unpredictability of events? Some strongmen love that. Actually, most of them that I've talked to love that part of strongman. But what do you think? You were used to for so many years knowing what the events were going to be every time.
I mean, people always go back and forth in which is more difficult, but in its own way, they're both more difficult. I mean, in the powerlifting, you have to specialize in these three movements. You have to go very far into specializing in them. But for strongman, you have to be open to whatever happens. I mean, deadlift isn't just a deadlift, for example. It's just, I think both sports are just very different. I enjoy the big spectrum of events that the strongman has to offer, but we also sometimes see events that have been made up and are just silly. I think we should be trying to minimize injury, for example, in our sport with the picking of events as well. And sometimes you will see events that you just look at them and you say, I mean, this isn't smart at all. And it's not as common now, obviously, as it was in the 80s or something, but we could sometimes still do a little better. And I mean, for example, it's people may disagree, but fuck it. But pressing an Atlas stone, that's an all-around bad idea. I mean, why not a natural stone or a block or whatever? Why a round thing that is very easy to lose your grip on? For example, I mean that's just my view. I mean, but if I show up for a competition and that's one of the events, I'll fucking do it, of course. But I think sometimes we can pick a little better.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should try to avoid injury both with our training and in the picking of events as well. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right that it's better than it used to be, because I don't remember, it wasn't Worlds, but one of the competitions had a potato sack race back in the 80s, I think it was. So that's some of them were very, very silly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, lots of those. The first, I think it was the first version of the Conan's wheel when they were walking sideways with like a wagon, and I mean just the way you're operating your spine to be able to hold it and walk was silly, because you may not be getting injured right away as well, but you might be adding up to an injury in a couple of years,
Yep.
So there's a lot of things to it.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. So kind of backing up a little bit, can you tell us about your roots, your upbringing, like something interesting about your upbringing that folks would find interesting?
Yeah, I was brought up about when I was 6 years old. We moved from my town, which is populated by a little less than 20,000 people, to the countryside here just nearby. It's just a 10-minute drive or so. My parents built a house there, and I was living close to my grandfather and grandmother. And I went to a public school. All the schools here are basically public though, but it only had about 70 to 80 pupils all in all. So I was in a class of, when we started out, we were 9. We ranged from, I think, 8 to 10 through the years when we were there. And it was very different from, going to school with 30 people in the class, I'm guessing, because I can only guess because I didn't try that. I spent the whole 10 years there. But I think I was very privileged to go through a small school like that, because I consider most of the people there, most of the guys there, I mean, these are my friends. I keep very good contact with them, and 2 of them are actually responsible for me going into the powerlifting. One of them saw an advertising for Olympic lifting seminar when we were 13, and the 3 of us ended up going. And in the next fall, I joined one of them for powerlifting for a couple of years, and he then quit, and I'm still here. Funny story, actually. When we finished 10th grade, which is the last grade in our grade school before we go to a next level, we were 16 and we went to the UK for a week on a trip. And I can remember me and that friend of mine that kept training powerlifting with me for a couple of years. We were talking to some British locals, and we were telling them, they were asking about us and stuff, and we were telling them, like, we're going to be on the World's Strongest Man one day. And that was in 1999, in May. In 2019, 20 years later to the month, I got my invite for the World's Strongest Man. So we were right there the first time I claimed that I was going to get there. Took a while, but still made it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I loved living in the countryside. I have 2 younger sisters, and I was not that good in any sport, really. Did some football. There's a group sport called handball. It's not very big in the U.S., but it's a great sport. It's a lot of fun to watch because there's a lot of action, and it's it's a touch sport.
Mm-hmm.
I played that for a few years. Was a goalie there, and I actually back in 2014 or something. I played a few games again with a small lower division team back in Ísafjörður when I was living there. That was a lot of fun, but I never got very good at any of the sports. But somehow I found myself in powerlifting. It was easy. I mean, you can train soccer for full year, and you can think you're getting better, but you don't have statistics really to prove it. But in powerlifting, if you bench 100 kilos today and 110 tomorrow, you improved. Mm-hmm. And that simplicity always got me. It was easier to keep track and to stay motivated. And I mean, I wasn't that good, by the way. I mean, I always there was a bus that took us to school because, I mean, there was no walking or stuff like that, because it would have taken, took 10 minutes by car to get to school. So it would have taken an hour to walk probably or more.
Wow.
So there was always a bus, and I would take the bus into town after school as well to go train, and went home with my friend. He lived in town. So it was living outside the city. The town was a bit different than, I think, for most, but I always loved it. And our plan is, when our youngest kid gets a driver's license, we want to move back over there and buy the house that my grandfather had. And currently my father is running 2 apartments there for, like Airbnb. Mm. So I've been posting a lot of pictures from there for the last few years, and it's beautiful. It's a fantastic view, and yeah. Any idea? Any questions about that time more? I don't know.
No, those are all great stories. Fantastic. Actually, one thing I kind of wanted to piggyback on that. Do you have any memories of being a child and kind of lifting up weird stuff where today you think, oh, it all makes sense now?
Not in a big sense, but we used to deadlift my grandfather's quad. What is it called? It's a 4-wheeler quadro.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And that was not a very long lift, 10 centimeters or something, and it wasn't that heavy. But I remember me and my nephews, were taking turns, trying to lift it and sitting on it and stuff like that. But there was not a big sense in it though. But to be honest, it wasn't really until I started training that I got that bug, that it got to me. Obviously we had been watching World's Strongest Man here in Iceland with John Paul and Magnus Magnusson through the years, but and there was always this. Icelanders are really arrogant people, really. When we have John Paul Simonsen and Magnus winning those titles, we have an Icelandic woman winning Miss Worlds in the 80s. So we were stuck on the fact that we were the strongest and the strongest man in the world and the most beautiful women. And it takes you have to take a little step back to realize how fucking arrogant you are when you live. But you're getting raised by this idea how much better you are than anyone else. But then you start looking around and you realize you're just like everybody else, really. I can't fully explain how we have 9 World's Strongest Men titles, and I don't think we have 1 million Icelanders since they found the country in 800 and something. So that's a pretty high number of titles.
Absolutely.
Per capital, yeah, but I can't really explain it. It's the same with the powerlifting. We're very good powerlifters, but there's something in the water or something, But
Strongman is really highly respected there. I got to tell you, everybody I interview who I ask, who were you most motivated by strongman-wise growing up, Magnus Magnusson is by far the most common answer. Travis Ortmeyer told me Magnus. Steve Schmidt told me Magnus. He is by far the most motivating figure of any strongman that I talk to.
Yeah, having Magnus around has been pretty good. He's taught me a lot of stuff. Not taking anything away from him, but I fully understand the guys looking to him, because as soon as you get to meet one of your heroes, you can relate more and stuff like that. I've met a lot of the guys I watched on television in the 90s here at home, probably most of them through the powerlifting and all that. But I've always, and there's nothing to do about it, but I've always had this, I wish I would have met John Paul Simonsen as well. I never did. I'm 10 years old when he passes away, and but instead he gets to be mythical. He tells stories, and you don't want to question them even, and they don't need questioning. The guy was fantastic, and he was fun, and he liked teasing people and stuff like that. So he was extremely well liked here in Iceland, and. So we have good history of awesome guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who you would have wanted to compete against if you could and never got the opportunity. So I guess John Paul would be your answer.
Yeah, with full respect to Magnus, I would have to go with John Paul. It probably is because I never got to meet him, but yeah, that would be my go-to answer. But second, I got to compete against Magnus, so that might also explain the answer. But
absolutely,
I think I got 3 competitions in against Magnus in Strongman.
Yeah, and then kind of the flip side of the coin there, who has been your favorite person that you competed with?
Man, there are a lot of good names there. I think as a competitor and as a strongman guy, I never really challenged him at all when we were competing. I got a couple of points off him a few years ago, but back in 2006 when he was coming up and I was focusing on powerlifting, I did a few strongman shows as well, and he was very dominant, and I would have loved to see him with less injuries on his record, and that's Stefan Solly Peterson. That was a fantastic strongman that he got 4th place overall at Worlds on his best year. But man, he could have, with a better luck, he could have done so much more.
Yeah. And so speaking of Worlds, I'm interested to learn what was your path to get there? How did you get yourself invited?
We get one. We have competitions in Iceland over the summer, which Magnusson hosts, and the winner of the tournament, who scores best over the summer, he qualifies for World's Strongest Man. I came up second behind Ari Gunnarsson, and he refused his invite, and I jumped on that.
And what are your memories of Worlds? Like, what are your best memories of Worlds? How did you feel you prepared? How did it go? Kind of, what are your memories there?
It's crazy. I had a great time. I got to meet a lot of fantastic people and see how this thing runs and works. But obviously, this injury fucked it up a lot for me. And I mean, it's pretty weird because tearing, obviously, my Achilles tendon sucks. And but I was so pumped in every fucking muscle fiber in my body when I fell down that the guys trying to help me out of there, I couldn't even hold on to them. I didn't even have grip strength to hold their shoulders. So I was so mentally done by the time we got into the tent. I wanted to just, I gave up twice on the way to the tent. The injury itself was no problem. Getting to the tent was, I can't even explain how difficult it was. But as long as when I get in there, they lay me down. My father's there with me and my wife and a good friend of mine. And at this exact moment, I have the time to think, and I'm about to, start some self-pity. Stefan Solid Peterson walks into the tent and asks me how I'm doing. Point is, Stefan has been in so many bad timed injuries. He's on his way back when he gets to Europe's Strongest Man. He's probably getting an invite that year to the World's Strongest Man, and he tears his Achilles tendon. He has a surgery, and it gets infected. The guy has been so unlucky. But this was only my second injuries in 22 years or something. So when he comes up and says, "How are you doing?" I'm not gonna whine to this guy. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm okay. it will heal up. And I honestly think that the fact he walked in there and he asked me helped me cope with it in a lot of ways. I loved being there. I loved being part of this show. To be like, Colin Bryce came up to me after and said, "Congratulations, you're now a World's Strongest Man athlete. It sucks that you get injured, but nobody can take that away from you."
Yep.
And that helps as well. But right away, the first day, I was like, "It's fine. It's done. It happened. Can't change this. It's all it did." And I'm going home. I'll have surgery if I have to. I didn't have to. I will fix this. I will get it as strong as it was, and I'll be fucking back. So I have a lot of fun memories of just. I was in a very mentally good place when I came out as well, So I was going to enjoy my stay, no matter what. I showed up with that attitude. I'm going to enjoy this. This isn't something everybody gets. I'm going to enjoy this and give it my best. And honestly, man, the time I had when I tore my Achilles tendon, I would probably have won that first event in my group. Not a lot of people know that or agree, blah, 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 but I know that, and it helps a little bit. So yeah, it's somehow just the whole experience, I think, would be the positive memories I bring home, I got to have my father there with me as long as my wife and her friends, and it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
So as far as Icelandic strongmen are concerned, people most know you and Hafthor in the current crop of strongmen. Of course, we mentioned John Paul and Magnus. How prevalent is strongman throughout Iceland today, besides the two of you?
You mean competitor-wise, or?
Yeah, like are there many of them? And Hafthor also is recently retired as well, so that leaves you. Like, are there many others besides yourself?
Yeah, you may not consider it many, but to me they are. Yeah, we have Eithor, who went to Worlds last year. He's a very up and coming guy. He's been improving a lot, and he's going to Bahrain now. He's in Bahrain, I think, now, competing at AWESOME this weekend.
Oh, Aitor, I didn't realize he was Icelandic. Yeah, I know Aitor. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's Icelandic.
Mm-hmm.
Ari Gunnarsson as well has not fully retired yet. He's teasing himself, I think, with quitting or not. We're both turning 38, me and Ari. Ari went to at least 2 World's Strongest Mans, beat Eddie in one of the events. They were in the same group.
Wow.
The second time he was there, then they changed the event for the finals, in which was similar to the one that Ari won. But Ari's a fantastic strongman as well. But we have also, do you remember Torvi Olofsson?
Yes, of course.
His son is also on the rise. He's getting pretty good. And we have Christian Sindre Nielsen, who is, he's been overlooked a little bit, but I think people should be aware of him, at least here in Iceland for now. But he had some injuries this summer, but he came in so strong to the summer, and he's already stronger than he was before the summer as well, and he's recovered fully. So, but we have quite a group of guys, in what would probably be called, like novice, amateur level-ish as well. I don't remember a time when we had more active competitors or guys working up to compete, but they're not obviously listed in the hundreds, but they're in the tenths, and for us, that's a decent number of guys. And I mean, when you can also consider that we're maybe looking at 20, 30 guys, which is a fine number for considering the size of our community. I mean, we still have guys that have, Aitor finished 4th in his heat, and he was not far off from reaching the 3rd to go to the stone. And Ari finished in the 11th place. He was the highest on points of the 3rd places when he was out there a few years ago, and so we have very good guys as well, even though they're not that many. I have a small gym up here in Akureyri, and I have at least 3 guys working their up to start competing, and we have a population of about 20,000 people. And we obviously we work alongside the powerlifters because not that many of either of us. But most of our competitions are shown on television, and here in Iceland, even though they haven't shown the World's Strongest Man for a long time, which sucks. But like the Westfjord Viking, Iceland's Strongest Viking, I think it's called in English, that's been getting 70% ratings or something. Viewing. 70% of the nation actually sees it. That's a huge number. But they're still looking to, the government-run TV station is always still trying to push back and showing less and less, even though people want to watch it. So it's ridiculous. But last year, me and my team hosted Iceland's Strongest Woman. We've done so twice before. And it's been a contest that's been running now for over 10 years, 12 years or something, consistently. And we managed to televise that show last year for the first time. We went to a smaller TV station that, now when everything is, not, what do you call it? When they use the broadband or whatever you call it, to broadcast it, it doesn't matter what TV station it is, it's going to be on every TV anyway. So we had a local TV station show it for us, and that was the first step, and it went pretty well. So, this sport is, people have interest in it in our community. It could be better, money-wise and stuff like that, but it's going on. It's rolling somehow.
I'll do my part to bring more and more attention, as I've been doing. That's great that you're affiliated with such a prestigious event. That's fantastic. We've been talking a lot about Iceland, and I was wondering also, for people in other parts of the world who just aren't familiar, what would you say is, and I know it's a whole country, but the best part of Icelandic culture to you or your community in Iceland?
It's always, difficult to say what is. You don't always realize what is different, in your culture than others, because you're not on the outside looking in, you're just there. That's a pretty good question.
Thank you.
I don't know how to fully put it, but I think in a way we believe in ourselves despite being this small. We believe we're relevant to whatever we decide we're being relevant to. We've said this before now, and just with the overall titles we won in World's Strongest Men, we don't show up and feel like we are any less than anyone else just because we come from a small place. With individual sport, that's not that weird though. But we have succeeded immensely in group sports as well. Currently, we have 350,000 people living on this island, and we have been to both the European and World Cup in soccer. And in the Europeans, we got to the 16-team finals. And until the 8-team finals, we got out of our heat, and we won the first match as well against England, which is supposed to be pretty good. And they're still pretty pissed about it. We are by a landslide the smallest nation to win a medal, not a gold medal, silver medal it was, in a group sport when our handball team took second place in 2008 Olympics in China. We are 350,000. I don't remember how many millions the second smallest country is. And sometimes we forget and we start talking about how good we are per capita, and that's the wrong way to think about it. We're supposed to be good despite how small we are, not because how small we are. And there's actually a pretty good stand-up on Netflix. Ari Eldjárn, you should definitely look him up. He's funny as hell. The way he comes into this as well. We're always best at everything per capita. We're that so few that we can leverage anything. But I think that's one of our biggest, most positive, mental. What do you call it? Social
outlook. Yeah, like a cultural outlook.
I think that's one of the most positive things I could point out that I think is a little bit different here than somewhere else. Everybody has. I'm not saying that most people don't think like this, but I think it's very rich in us that. I don't care what my odds are, I will do it anyway. I'm just like John Paul said when he was competing with Cass and Capes in 88, and it was 87 in Scotland. They were trying to figure out the events. They all sat down with Douglas, and they were going to try to figure out 10 events, and John Paul just stood up and said, I don't care what the events are, I'm going to win anyway, and walked out. So it's actually that mindset that fuck it, we'll do it.
It's interesting how there's the parallels of the past and the present with Iceland and the U.S. So Iceland's past is John Paul, and their present's best is Hafthor. The U.S., the guy of that era was Kaz, and now it's Brian Shaw. So you can kind of compare Brian and Hafthor are rivals, and Kaz and John Paul were rivals.
Yeah. It took the U.S. a long time as well to get back on the horse after John Paul and Capes took it over. It wasn't until Phil Pfister won in, 06, 07? Something like that, yeah. It was a long, dry area.
Yeah, for sure. It was Phil Pfister was the first one for the U.S., I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 2006 or 7. I can't remember which it was.
Yeah, I think it was seven, right? Was six the one where he made the proclamation during the Hercules Hole, I will win this one day, and then 7 he came back.
I think that was way earlier.
Way earlier?
Yeah. Years before, yeah. I remember that, but I don't remember when it was. But I think it was not like 1 or 2 years, but I think it was like 4 or 5. So that was pretty good because you didn't really expect him to. He wasn't. To me, it didn't look like the material for it, but proved me wrong.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy to listen to interviews. He's very intelligent sounding guy. So another thing I was just wondering is of all the events, and I know they vary from competition to competition, what's your favorite and why?
I'm log lift is my personal favorite as as an event to perform. I think it's one of the heaviest overall strengths. You're going to have to obviously clean it up in its awkward positioning. So if you have a really good log press, you're going to have to clean up, deadlift up a pretty heavy object, considering it's that far away from you. Then you're going to have to clean it up to your chest. You're going to have to manage to breathe probably with it on chest. At least I always breathe with it on my chest, because if you plan not to breathe with it on chest and something fails, you're out because you don't have the oxygen to take extra couple of seconds. But then you're going to have to obviously have very strong shoulders and triceps and everything and finish the press, but you're going to have to have the core and the stability to stand right under there as well. And obviously you need the leg strength as well for the push. You know, it's. I think it's one of the most overall difficult events. And I was pretty damn good at it. I've done 207 in training with Hafthor and Larry Reels, and but as a classic event to watch and to be part of the sport, I think the Atlas Stones and the Husafell are two of my absolute favorites. Last year we competed with the original Husafell Stone in Husafell. We went up there with the camera crew and everything, and it was a long drive for it, but it was beautiful. It was fantastic.
Does that stone stay on premises, or does it ever move away from there?
It has been moved away a couple of times for competitions with special permits, but it stays there the year round.
Yeah, because I think I've seen videos of Hafthor competing right there with it, and he has the record, doesn't he, for furthest carry with the original Husafell?
Yeah, it's 90 something, 99, 89, something like that. He had it with an even 90 meters. Then Tom Stoltman came to Iceland and they competed with it. And Tom went 91 or 2, and Hafthor took it away from him directly after with 90 something. I don't remember exactly, but he did not pass the 100 meters at least. And I mean, that guy's built for walking with stones. He could put it on his chest, and it's nowhere near his legs, so there's no. Yeah, he's been phenomenal with it. I mean, the record, he broke it 2000 and I think 17. He broke it for the first time with the original stone, and then the record had stayed for 2 decades or something since Andres Guðmundsson had it. He had it at 75 meters, so it was a long-lasting record, and he broke it pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah, going back to the log press, though, if I've never pressed a log before, if I wanted to try it for the first time, what are the best tips you would give me?
Well, it's always difficult to give tips before you see someone try something. It's always going to help out, but I would tell you to engage your core as well as you can, and don't try to row it on your lap. Just deadlift it up and sit back down with it on your lap. Try to squat down until it's on you can pull it against you approximately on the top half of your six pack, before a little bit below the chest, but not on your mid stomach, but higher. Mm-hmm. Then stand up with it, and as you're almost fully stood up, you turn it around. It should happen pretty automatically. Get your elbows out in front of you, not just down by your side or something. And dip your knees a little bit and do that fast dip. Not too deep, but fast down, fast up. and be ready to, with your triceps and everything engaged, ready to push with it as it goes off your shoulders, and drive it all the way to lock out, and don't double dip. I think most guys are losing kilos on their double dipping, because if you don't catch it with the second dip fully locked out, you're going to have to balance it before you can start pressing it. And there might be a guy or two that is benefiting from it, but I don't think most guys are losing kilos from the log press if they double dip.
Yeah, that's a really insightful thing I never thought of, the lockout, the catch into a lockout. That's very insightful. And the other thing you said before was about it being far away from you. And I think people who have never done it before don't get this. But if you have a 12-inch log, it's 6 inches away from you. Whereas if you were doing a normal deadlift, it's basically against your body. And that makes a big difference when the center of gravity is not where a traditional Olympic bar would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think picking up a 200-kilo log is more difficult than deadlifting 300 kilos, for example.
Okay.
So, I mean,
that makes a difference. Wow.
I mean, as well, did you watch Luke Stoltman's attempt to hit the log record last year?
Yes.
To watch that guy, well, he cleaned it twice, and then he went for a second attempt, and he cleaned it twice again. He cleaned 230 log 4 times in 15 minutes. It was crazy. I mean, when he cleaned it the second time in the first attempt, I was like, there's no way this is possible. Then he makes fine attempt with it. It was fucking. It looks awesome.
And again, for the U.S. audience, that's kilos, so that's like 510 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I think 227 is 500. So it's 210ish, 212 maybe.
For many people, that's a good deadlift.
Yeah. I have clients that are still working their way up to that.
Yeah. Wow. So, what would you say is your favorite thing about Strongman that you've just had in your mind since you've been in it?
The camaraderie, the guys, the friends, the people. David Waters came over to visit me a couple of years ago. I met David for the first time in Hungary in 2007, I think, 2008 maybe. We competed together. We drank together one night. Didn't see him again until he was working at the Arnold Amateur show in 2016. We greeted each other like had been in full contact the whole time. I mean, we were on Facebook, but we didn't talk at all, I think. He then came down for the Worlds in 2019, and we chatted up a little bit and kept in touch. And he came over and stayed with me for a week. Wow. 3 months later. I mean, it's crazy that you meet people a couple of times in this sport, and you might be totally different personalities and everything, but there's something about this sport that makes you click. You make friends it's hard to explain it. It's just we're the same kind of crazy.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And even from a fan's perspective, I've experienced that as well. Like, everybody I reach out to is very friendly, and they all answer back. And David Waters, by the way, is a fantastic guy. He promoted the Mammoth Strain Challenge 5, which I did the after show for very recently. Yeah, and that was – you got to give him a lot of credit. He had Highland Games, he had Masters Nationals, and the Mammoth going on all in one location, and was able to kind of mastermind that all. He's really, gifted in that respect, and a wonderful guy. I had nothing but positive things to say about him.
Yeah, me too. I'm hoping to show up for Mammoth next year. We'll see.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be fantastic. Yeah, because they did have quite a few pros there this year. I actually was going to ask you, what was your journey to get to your pro card?
Oh, that's we don't have cards here. The pro card idea is, I think, almost solely in the U.S.
Okay.
And I'm coming back from a shoulder and elbow injury as well now, and it's been a hell of a 2 years. But if I come to the Mammoth, for example, I will have to compete, and I will compete as an amateur there.
Okay.
Because I don't have a US pro card. And I would try to get my invitation there for nationals, like David has been bugging me up for 2 years to do. And I mean, we'll see. Maybe if I get invited to the nationals, maybe I'll do it. I don't know. I have to get back on the horse. I'm hoping to do the official Strongman games in November.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to see how well my shoulder progresses until then. I've strict pressed 220 pounds, 100 kilos before my elbow surgery. That was 2 weeks ago. So now it's a little bit time off before I can fully start pushing myself again. So I'm gonna work my way into the place I want to be. I don't expect to get anything given, So, but David's been trying to get me out for the last 2 mammoths, and I was actually thinking about coming this time around, but COVID and my surgery as well fucked it up. But yeah, I mean, he's just an all-around great guy, and I've been bugging him about getting his podcast back on. He did a lot of fun, good shows. So, and yeah, I hope to come out there.
Good. Now I have some ammunition. I'll bug him as well about that.
Good.
So the other thing I was wondering is, we touched on this a little bit, but you're also a coach, right? So how did you get into coaching, and what would you say kind of is your general coaching philosophy?
It started out with, I was always trying to get my friends involved in powerlifting. So I was always helping them out with training and stuff. And I didn't know that much though anyway. I was just teaching them what I already knew. And so yeah, it was in the early 2000s. It was a lot of that, helping guys out, telling them. I met my wife in 2006, and she started training with me as well. She became a 2-time European champion in powerlifting, and in just a few years. But she had to quit the sport again very soon. And in 2009. I signed up for a personal training school for a full year. At that time, at least, it was one of the most thorough personal training schools in Europe. And I was hesitant because I've been in this heavy lifting, and I think I know quite a lot. And they're probably going to tell me everything I know is bullshit, and they're not going to listen to anything. But it was fantastic. I learned all the basics. I believe you cannot learn with just showing up and doing. I mean, when I was younger, in my teens, I had this problem with my knees caving in the squats. It was pointed out to me, but nobody could help me out with what to fucking do with it. And I gotta admit, I wasn't that great at going online back then and trying to figure things out. And I mean, I had a big butt wink for months, and I had no idea how to fix it, And people pointed it out to me in the gym, but like, yeah, what do I do about it? I don't know, but you have it. It isn't helpful. But I learned a lot about how to fix these problems and work with them and all that. And I've been every time I have to use my physical therapist to fix something, I will make sure to learn in the meantime what we're doing and why. So I opened my own gym as well in 2009, and I was coaching there personal trainers, not just lifters and strongmen, but people, but everybody. And I ran that for 2.5 years, and always did some coaching. I moved back west with my wife, and there we had a powerlifting team, so I was always coaching there. And right now, I'm at a pretty good place. I think I have a few guys, all of which more or less are strongmen. I think all the guys I'm coaching right now want to be strongmen. The online coaching, yeah. I have a lot of regular people in which I'm helping out too, face to face. And right now, and what I've been trying to teach the guys I have, a lot of them are a lot younger than I have. I'm on the way down probably, but they're on the way up. So I'm trying to teach them to do it without risking too much injury. Be smart. I mean, I rather train smart than hard, but you should do both. But smart should become first There's no need to push yourself all the way to the brink of failure or brink of your limits. If it's going to cause you injury that sets you back 6 months. And what I mean, there's a lot of these injuries you will never get 110%. You'll always be like 96, 97, and that adds up. I mean, if you tear an Achilles tendon, you can get back to being competitive and everything, but I think you're going to feel it always, that there's something different between your right and your left leg. But yeah, train smart, not hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I saw that you actually have a second Instagram account for your coaching. And the one thing that I noticed on there was in the US, we would call it SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And I think it translates into something very similar that you had there. And I find that very interesting because that's what I do analytics wise in my day job. But you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the Instagram, the Be Strong. You mean the Instagram page?
Yeah, kind of the approach that you have on that page that are making things like more attainable and that sort of thing.
Yeah. The SMART thing I put in there. That's I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm trying to work that more into my training and work it more to help people more with it in my training. So one of the things that I have posted, are the SMARTs. I recommend people go in there and go through them. They're pretty high on there, but it's about setting goals and making sure your goals are working for you. Not just, it's not enough to say I'm going to bench 300 kilos. How are you going to get there? When are you going to get there? What milestones do you have on the way there? You have to be pretty smart about how you're going to go there. For myself, it was not in that post, but for myself as well, I often put up A, B, and C goals. It worked very well in powerlifting because in powerlifting, obviously, you have the numbers to deal with. So maybe I would be showing up, and my absolute biggest goal is to hit 1,100 kilos that weekend. But I will be content with 1,070. And I can live with 1,050 or something like that. And because you shouldn't always go into something with everything or nothing. I mean, if I would have walked into that meet with, I'm just going for 1,050, so it's more likely I will reach it. And I'm not pushing myself enough. But if I'm always going in, with I'm going for 1,100 or nothing, I will be pissed if I don't get 1,100. You may not get that ultimate goal. I mean, my A goal, I maybe got once out of every 5 competitions. But when I did, it was worth it. But if I would have always gotten annoyed and pissed and disappointed every time, the other 4 times, it would have finished me off. I would have gotten tired and pissed. And so it's, for me, the A, B, and C goals, for example, they will help me be a little crazy in the goals I'm setting, but at the same time, I can walk away content. I'm not walking away pissed. I mean, it's a little logic behind it,
So I learned quite a bit from you this evening. We talked about World's Strongest Man, your background, your upbringing, how to lift a log, all kinds of great stuff. Why don't we finish up by letting people know how they can follow you? Anything you'd like to promote, feel free.
Thanks, buddy. You should definitely check out my Instagram, Sigfus Fosdal, and Be Strong Iceland is the other Instagram account we talked about. I also have a website which is bestrong.is, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions about coaching, about anything. And yeah.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Well, thanks, Sigfus. I really appreciate you jumping on this evening and having this great chat with me. And maybe after you're all healed up in your next competition, we have another discussion. What do you think?
Sounds good, man.
Fantastic, man. Have a good evening.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.